All right, boys and girls, Tyler Mahoney here, Truman Fish Intel. I got my good buddy, David McCormick from the Fish30 YouTube channel. David, how's it going?
It's going well. It's going real well. Other than, the whole Midwest has been punished by the weather. I'm going to tell you, I held my fishing pole on February the 6th, and I haven't held it since. I've looked at them. But that was the day before the storm really hit, or actually was the day the storm hit up here where I live in Lee Summit, Missouri. And I don't know, we got about 10 inches of snow, but I raced off to Bull Shoals, and that was the last time I held my fishing pole. So it's not been really good, but I hear the ice is coming off.
Heck yeah. Well, we're going to get into some of the Truman stuff here in a few minutes, but I wanted to ask you, so you've been not necessarily on Truman, obviously, with it being iced over, but you got a couple new videos out and you were down on Bull Shoals. You had a pretty decent day. Why don't you fill us in a little bit about that?
Well, I fished with Blake Hart, and he lives in Ava, so he's fairly familiar with the lake. So I'm not going to take credit for identifying how far we were going to fish away from where we took off from, because I'm going to tell you, I don't know the lake as well as he did, but he picked our spots, and we didn't drive very far from the boat ramp. We came out of Buck Creek, and so that was probably mid-lake, and he caught 4 keepers before I even got got my first keeper. So it was an Alabama rig bite, and like it, hate it, I'm not sure. It's not something we fish at Truman, but it does obviously work. I'm going to tell you, years ago, I set the all-time Joe Bass heaviest stringer ever caught on an Alabama rig at Table Rock. So, but yet I have mixed feelings on it. But we had a great day, and the old football jig actually put the 2 biggest ones in the boat in the bottom of the box. So I'm happy. I didn't catch as many as he did, but man, we had fun, and that was the last time I got to go fishing.
How slow did you have to be fishing that football jig?
Well, remarkably speaking, I'm going to tell you that it was 44, 43, 42 to 45 degrees. So it wasn't super slow. And honestly, I put a Menace grub on my 3/4 ounce football jig when it's cold. Mark Davis, years ago in the Bassmaster, showed us that grub has some special powers in the cold, and it is absolutely a player on Truman Lake. Just the normal Menace grub, and I'm going to tell you that Falcon Lake craw is a color of it to look at, seriously. But that was what I was throwing. I was throwing a Jewel 3/4 ounce football jig in peanut butter and jelly with a Falcon Lake craw colored Menace grub. I really think the frequency of the kicking is really something. I got some kickers, that certain brands that only work in the heat when it's warm, and then this Menace really works when the water's cold. Matter of fact, we catch them on a wobblehead just using the Menace grub as a bait too. So that's a very neat cold water technique that very few people do, but you can go behind a person who's fishing a wiggle wart or a rock crawler and really get them caught. So that's really, I'm going to tell you, I constantly do move the rod, but actually the distance I'm pulling it, I'm literally trying to make it breathe, to shake, just like I had it on a nest, and I was nest fishing. I don't want to move it, but yet I want it to be alive.
Right.
So a lot of guys ask me about that. They say, we see your rod moving in the videos, and it's true. I'm moving it, but yet if it is moving, it's only moving an inch or 2 at a time, if even that. So, so fairly slow, to answer your question, but yet not near as slow as just, leaving it there, not moving at all. Right. I have a hard time with that.
What do you end up with? About 12, 13 pounds?
Yeah, something like that. I'm going to tell you, it didn't show up in the video very well, so I didn't put it in the video, but I lost one. I only had it on for about 15 seconds, but man, it was a big smallmouth. I know it was just by how it fought. Those smallmouth down there pull really hard, and they might not be the biggest, but it was I'm going to guess it was a 3 or 4 pounder. It felt like to me, and that would have put us right in the bottom of the check line. But when you're fishing at Bull Shoals, you're fishing against some really good locals, just like any place else. It's hard for guys to come up to Truman and compete against some of those guys that are up there, and yet it's hard to do the same thing the other way. But we almost got it done.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, speaking of that, so we got David McCormick Fish30 YouTube channel, one of our Truman Lake Fishing Intel contributors. What do you think? The lake's been ice covered. Jeff Falkenberry earlier today was saying it's unlike anything he thinks he's ever seen, with just the amount of ice over the entire lake. We're getting closer to ice out. There's still ice pretty much on the main lake. What do you expect to see the fish doing when this ice finally gets out of here as we move further into March?
Well, I'm going to tell you, Truman's like a lot of the early fisheries. You're gonna crank some, and you're gonna throw a jerk bait. You might even throw a single bladed spinner bait. For the most part, if the water's not too torn up and ice first comes off, I struggle to get them to bite when it's at Truman when it's under 40 degrees. But it's like when that lake gets to 42 degrees, which isn't very hard to do once ice is out, it can be achieved in just a week of warm weather. Those fish, if the lake's not too torn up, I've had some tremendous, I can remember in 16 or 17, Joe Dorsey and myself fished one of the very first Joe Bass tournaments, and we won it. And we had 18 3/4 pounds, and we caught them all on a stick bait. And literally that day I broke 2 bills on my crankbait, on my stick bait, throwing it so shallow. A lot of guys think that those fish, will get real deep. And at Truman, if we have a little color, what truly happens, I believe, is they pull up. They pull up to the rocks that are catching the thermals. Even if the water's dirty, that shallower water heats up fastest, and they will get shallow. I mean, remarkably shallow. And then a guy could also maybe tie in a red wigglewort or a red rock crawler in that same scenario. One guy's jerking and one guy's throwing a wigglewort behind him, and then you guys have a real solid 1-2 punch on those fish, because not all of them are going to react to the stick bait when the water's dirty, but between the two, you're gonna get some bites.
So if you're working that jerk bait, you're probably moving a lot more slowly, a little more methodically down the bank. You're not cruising, ripping it back.
I'm going to tell you this, that you're going to pull up and look in your maps of Truman, and you're going to do your little bit of research and look at those secondary points that are back in the creeks that still have 25 feet in the front of them. And those fish are naturally driven to those secondaries first thing, because from there is where they then move back to the truly pre-spawn areas. But I still believe the water's really good and clear at Truman, which doesn't happen very often in the spring. And looking at how much rain we had just before this last super duper mega several 2 cold fronts came through, I'm afraid it's probably going to have some color. But there's things to do about that. There's picking those brighter colored jerk baits at Truman in early season. I'm all about those bright colors. I mean, and Bass, obviously, most of these brands now, including Megabass, have a plethora of selection in the bright colors.
Yeah, I know.
Orange, green bellies,
Yeah,
those kind of things.
I know in the rivers right now that is open on Truman on the Sac, it is muddier than all get out apparently. So I'm sure it's going to be that way, like what you're talking. When you're doing the retrieve on these bright colors, you talked about secondary points. I mean, does looking at the main river channel, main lake points on the main river channel, that can be pretty good area during the summer. Is that a good spot early springtime as well?
It can be. Some of those bigger females, I believe, won't move until it gets into the 50s, but some of them do. The beauty of fishing is that they don't all do exactly the same thing. We've got a big population of fish in Truman, and if the water allows them and it's clear enough, I have caught them on bluffs on the main lake, right up on the river channel. You know, my success usually is back in a creek. Even if it's 42 degrees, I'm back in a pocket. I say a creek. You can take any major creek that's down there on the Tebow side or the lower Grand or the Palmy side. And I'm going to tell you, don't let yourself be dominated to believe that those fish won't pull up when it's cold on pea gravel. So I'm going to tell you the year we won that. I'm not going to tell you the exact pocket, but it was full of pea gravel. There wasn't a big bluffy chunk rock bank in that pot in that creek. It was really a flat creek, and man, the water was cold, and you threw it to the bank, and about 3 feet off the bank, you'd let it sit, and boy, when they wanted it, they'd pull about take the rod out of your hand. And then the beautiful thing of that deal is that they don't fight real hard, and you're going to get most of them in the boat because they're not going to jump 3 times 3 feet in the air and throw your bait. So you tend to get bigger bites in the early spring anyway. And they're full of eggs. They weigh the heaviest, in March and April before they go up to spawn. So I don't know if anybody's been watching some other YouTubers. Milliken is going to have a 16-pounder caught on camera. He went to Texas, and love him or hate him, his partner that fishes with him caught a Sheralunker, and that weekend 3 Sheralunkers came out of the same body of water, a 16 and 2 13s.
Wow.
And it was 41 degrees. The water was, he said. So for Texas, that's really cold. I mean, then that proves to you that a lot of guys don't want to go out in the early spring because of the weather and the temperatures, but your chance to catch your personal best is in those first weeks of March and late March and the very beginning of April.
Let me ask you this. We got the big Bass Bash coming in April to Truman for the first time. Are you going to be competing in that?
I don't know exactly for sure, but I will say this. It's really that whole format is designed for the amateurs to come out and do that deal. And they've had some monetary restrictions. If you made so much money or fished in a big event, then they didn't want you in there. And I get it. But I have fished in them before, and I'm telling you, I mean, look how many 7-pounders came out of Truman last year. I mean, it's ridiculous how many big fish came out of that lake last year. Lakes cycle every 7 or 8 years, they say, and I really think Truman is on a maybe an upwards end, or maybe the apex of it, where we're going to have our best year that we've had in the last 8 years.
Yeah.
So that being said, maybe Lake of the Ozarks isn't quite on that same deal, but that big Bass Bash thing, the between the two lakes will be able to absorb a lot more of the fishermen. Lake of the Ozarks has more shoreline than Lake Michigan. Most people don't know that, and they don't realize how big it is. But even that place has a hard time swallowing up 2,500 boat tournament.
Right.
So I think it's a neat thing. It's going to bring some of the glory over to Truman, and it's going to let people see what Truman really is. Because Truman, after it's had these floods, and we held the water up, and last year and the year before, and those fish got to spawn, and they got their spawns off. We didn't think they did, but they did. And I mean, we caught so many bass last year that were 5 or 6 inches long.
Hmm.
The glory, the next 8 years from now, oh my God,
Yeah.
that's how these things roll. They cycle up and they build up, and this lake is building up. I'm telling you, I've never had 40 or 50 10-inch bass chase my bait in anywhere, but I had it happen to me last year at Truman on a regular basis when the water was warm. So most of those fish survive, we think.
Yeah.
We don't know for sure. Obviously some get eaten, but it's coming. And the lake's going to flood again, and we're going to have these cycles where when it floods and then they get the spawn off, wow, it's like we have a bigger lake, then we shrink it down and we have a bigger population in a smaller lake. And that's why I think somebody asked me on one of my YouTube videos this week if I thought that Truman or Lake of the Ozarks had a better average fish. And I had to admit that I thought Truman had a better average fish. There'd be some people that don't agree with me, but the bag depth at Truman when you are in these tournaments, and 20th place has 16 pounds or 17 pounds. And it's just amazing to me. How much weight it was taking last summer to win.
Yeah. Well, we're looking forward to ahead of the Big Bass Bash doing several more of these videos, consulting you on it, and folks are going to get a lot of great info and get a leg up. So,
and I won't probably be out there competing against them, but I think it's a good thing. I know there's some people that don't think it is, but I really think it's anything that brings that many people to our industry in support of our industry is a good thing.
Yeah.
And it brings the youth into this deal. And in today's world, I'm just not sure we're getting enough of them into it. So anything that can help, that's going to be a good thing.
Absolutely. Well, we've talked about several really good topics. I guess the one thing I wanted to finish on, unless you had anything else to add as well, but I kind of wanted to know what you're doing during these times when you can't get out on the water, what kind of maintenance you're doing on the gear, when's the boat coming, what are you doing to get the boat ready, and just that kind of stuff.
Big plan. So as for prep, I've got a garage full of tackle, and I actually have a boat down at the boat dealership. I've actually sold my 20 Phoenix. Kind of an interesting story. The first guy that bought it backed out, and of course I was bummed out and thought, oh my gosh, now I'm going to really have to make an effort to sell this. And a guy who saw it online earlier bought it, and he owns a company that builds mounts for bass boats too, and he even sponsors Major League Fishing anglers like Mark Davis. But so he bought my 20. And Monday, I have a brand new 2021 921 Pro XP Phoenix. Base colors is cement gray, just like the last one. And instead of blue stripes, this one's got gel orange stripes. And it actually has only pins on it. I kind of made it a virgin. So it doesn't have any of the big stripes on it. All it has is pins. So I like it. It's going to be a real clean looking boat. And of course, with the Mercury 250 on it, it's going to be a fast one. So that's the boat plan, and it should all come together on next week. And I'm going to make a video of me actually detailing the 2020 for this guy. It's going to come back from the shop. I had some warranty issues on the trolling motor, not the boat itself, but the trolling motor of Minn Kota. And so they fixed it all up, get it refurbished and all tip top for the new buyer. And then I'm going to bring it up to the detail shop, and I'm going to sand and polish it. And then I'm going to do a Barbasol treatment to the carpets. Say, what? Boy, if you have a blood stain around your live well, I would tell you to go to a Dollar General and buy the least expensive Barbasol shaving cream that you can. And then people say, what? Get the carpet slightly wet, cover it like you were icing a cake, the area that has the stain. I mean, a half an inch thick. And I want to take a brush, a plastic brush, not a wire brush, but a plastic brush, and scrub it all one direction until it disappears. And then I want you to power wash that area. It's incredible what that stuff does. It just takes out the stains. I guess whatever takes all the oil off your face when you're shaving is remarkable in what it does to the carpet. So I'm gonna document that on a video is what I want to do. And then the guys coming up from Arkansas, I'm gonna pick it up, and I'll try not to get too emotional because honestly, that's one of my favorite boats, and I've owned 25 boats. So hate to see it go, but I'm looking forward to the new one coming, and all new electronics. I'll give you a hint there. We shifted gears, and we wanted. I saw this new Lowrance live target, and I decided on their trolling motor because it had a spring in it, and Truman is full of timber, and the Minn Kota didn't have a spring on it. It did years ago, but since it's got the spot lock, they don't have it now. So I decided I needed it because most of the problems I probably created with the Minn Kota by running over trees. So I decided to go to the Lowrance, and then I decided once I played with the active target just a little bit, I really didn't play with it. I just looked at it from a boat next to a boat, and I was like, oh my God, that's it. I can tell from here that looked just like what I was used to in the Garmin brand. So it looks very similar to me, and it looks like it's going to work. So I'm not sponsored by Lowrance, so I wasn't sponsored by Garmin either. So I'm one of these guys who wants to try everything. So got too many girlfriends, right? Every pole's a girlfriend.
Well, it sounds like you might be having some trouble keeping a low profile in that orange boat of yours.
Well, now remember, it's all cement, and I will tell you this: all my buddies that fish against me and are friends with me, and they know I talk a lot and tell them where I'm fishing, and they said that gray boat is so hard to see against those gray rocks. Most camo. Now the pins are only a 1/4 inch wide.
Oh, okay.
Wide. So when I say I left it naked, I took all the big stripes off the side. I made them the same color as the base of the boat. So I basically wiped it free of stripes except for the pinstripes. So it's going to be even harder to see. And my wife wouldn't let me. I took a poll of all my family if we could put an orange console on it. Nobody voted for it. So there's no orange console on it. And that would have stuck out like a sore thumb, I thought. But I thought it was a good idea, but nobody else did. So it has a little orange in the seats. That might help you see me a little bit, but I don't know. I'm not worried about it, you know. I usually videotape and show everybody where I'm fishing anyway. And on Truman, the beautiful thing there is there are so many places to fish. If there's somebody on one spot 200, 300 yards away, there's almost the identical scenario occurring. That's just the beauty of Truman.
Right. Well, we are looking forward to doing these a lot more often. It's exciting. We're getting this figured out and can just sit down because David, you're in Lee Summit, which is where I'm from originally. And but now I'm living down in the Joplin area, and Clinton, where Mahoney HQ is, I always affectionately say, just going back and forth, these Zoom videos, it's going to make us a lot more accessible to our members. So really looking forward to it. Before we go, why don't you fill everybody in on the YouTube channel, tell them how to find you and all that good stuff.
Real easy. Just get on YouTube. It's FISH, no space, 30. You know, when you first start those YouTube channels, it's kind of hard to find the person because there aren't very many views. But once we've gotten to the point now where we've got we're pushing up on 500,000 views now, but 1.4 million minutes in viewing last year. I want to thank everybody for that. That's a lot of watching the videos. So, but just YouTube and Fish30, and I'm on Instagram now, Fish30, and of course I'm always on Facebook. and I tend to make everything public. So any of those videos I make public on Facebook. We're trying to be transparent. I know a lot of guys want to hide the lure and throw it out so you don't see it. And I've gotten to the point in my life where I really don't think that's everything when it comes to tournament fishing. It really isn't. It's all about, do you believe in yourself and are you confident? I feel like I can go to any creek in that lake and beat them.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, at certain moments in time, there are better spots than others, but in this early spring, whew, gosh, you can just ease your way on back in there and find you a load of them.
Yeah. Well, and of course, you could find David's stuff all at trumanlakefishingintel.com as well. He's one of our contributors. He does a lot of exclusive videos that are only for Truman Lake Fishing Intel members. This is going to be one of them. So definitely be sure to tell your friends and family, especially if you know guys that are bass fishing. Be sure to share, let them know, hey, David is putting out some great info exclusively for Truman Lake Fishing Intel members, and we're going to be doing it all year long. 2021 will be our first full year up and running because we launched in August 2020, so we're only 6-7 months old, and this is gonna be our first full year. It's gonna be a big year. We got some exciting stuff that's kind of in the works being put together. A lot of cool updates, so you just have to
and you know, and guys, this is almost like a bass club. I mean, that's why I just think the $40 or $50 for the membership is like a bass club. I mean, I know that it's how you get information is by getting around guys that catch them. Like every partner I fish with, I hate to say this, but every partner I fish with can whip my tail with a fishing pole. Okay, and I really think that that's important. I learn from others. So that's my point with the YouTube channel, and that's our point with this website is to get you intel, get you information that is valid. I can put those floppers in the bottom of the boat.
100%. David McCormick, Fish30 YouTube channel. Thanks a bunch for joining.
Love it. We need to do a walkthrough on the brand new one. Yes. Just for your channel. Well, I'll probably do a little one out on Facebook or on YouTube, but I'd like to. I know that's quite a drive, but I don't know when it's going to happen. It might be next week. We'll have to work on that, but yeah. I'd love to have that. I would think that would be neat for people. I'm excited.
Yeah, I think everybody would love to see it. So we'll catch you guys on the next one. Thanks a bunch for watching and tuning in. Be sure to check out David McCormick at Fish30 on YouTube. We'll catch you on the next one. See you later.
See you later, guys.